All right. Hello and good morning to everybody at San Diego Comic-Con. It is Friday here at the Mattel Creations booth, and you are here for the Mattel Creations Presents Mattel TV segment. So again, thank you so much for being here. How's Friday of Comic-Con so far for you? All right. Yeah, we're all getting our coffee. We're just getting started, coming and getting our exclusives. I see how it is. My name is Trisha Hirschberger, and I am joined here today by Rob David.
Hello.
Rob David
Hey,
is
everybody.
big ups for Rob. Rob is Vice President of Creative Content at Mattel Television Studios. So big job, and we're so honored you could be here with us today to share some of your insights.
Oh, I am so happy to be here. I love Comic-Con so much. I would be right there standing. If I weren't here, I'd be right there.
Yep. And this is why we're friends, I feel like, Rob, because this is so much fun. It's just so fun to be here. Now, for anyone who does not know Rob already, Rob has spent over 2 decades in the animation TV industry. So before Mattel, Rob was a writer and story editor for Disney, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, PBS, and more. I have to just give it the and more because there's so many there, including being a writer on Turtles Forever, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 25th anniversary TV movie. Right? Now, at Mattel, Rob, you spearheaded creative development and production for key Mattel brands, including 4 Netflix original series streaming now. So you're executive producer and showrunner of the 2021 Netflix animated series He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, co-developed and EP'd 2021's Masters of the Universe Revelation and its 2024 sequel series, Masters of the Universe Revolution, from showrunner Kevin Smith, and then co-created and EP'd on Hot Wheels Let's Race as well. So you're working on so much, Rob.
Yeah, all passion.
Now,
no sleep, all passion.
All passion, no sleep. Yeah, that's the secret. So if anyone, when we get to the Q&A, wants to know how Rob does it, I feel like that's the TLDR of this segment.
Oh, yeah.
Rob, as you've said, if you weren't up here, you would be right there. You love Comic-Con. You're a self-described, legit comic book nerd, as well as a major Star Trek fan.
This is true.
It's true. Now, did that inspire you to get into this line of work in the first place?
Oh, absolutely. This is not going to come as a surprise to any of you because I'm sure you all did this as well. But when I was a kid, first of all, my action figures, my Masters of the Universe action figures, G.I. Joe, Transformers, don't tell Hasbro I mentioned their toys. I would just play for hours and hours and hours on the floor. My parents told me as long as I kept my toys in the basement, I didn't have to clean up anything. And I just wrote out stories playing with them all the time. And then with comic books, particularly Marvel, I just became obsessed with them. And I have like 30 long boxes that my mom is nice enough to still keep in the house in Connecticut where I grew up. And those fueled my imagination. But above all, my number one was Star Trek. And I love The Next Generation, but particularly Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And so when I got into a position where I could possibly cast things, I made it my mission to slowly but surely hire anybody from Star Trek I could so I could meet them as a fan. So that was, from George Takei, who played Merman, and Gates McFadden, Dr. Crusher, who played He-Man's mom, and John Delancey, Q, playing Granomir, and Kevin Smith, and my good friend Ted Biaselli from Netflix. Not only did they encourage this, but they helped make it possible. And the biggest one was William Shatner. So 2 years was my God. And 2 years ago, highlight of my life was our Hall H panel where we announced William Shatner, and he took the sword of power and he stood behind me and said the magic words. And there's a picture of me, which I don't have here, but online, if I'm sure, or somewhere, definitely in my photo album, where I'm he's behind me holding the sword and I look like this. And literally, it's a moment where you could, if it were a movie, you could freeze frame. That'd be the last thing. Then roll the credits on my life. That'd be it. So it's a total dream come true to be a geek. And I feel like we took over the world. We won. We actually won.
It's true. I mean, now fandom culture is referred to as pop culture.
And now,
wild.
all the heroes and the things we love, we now have to save the world. So we're in the position to do so. So that's the next step.
Would you say that was probably your biggest pinch me moment? Was with William Shatner?
Ever in my life. That's it.
It'll be the title of your autobiography someday. that
Yeah.
moment. Now, Rob, when you're deciding and creating content based on Mattel's brands, so whether it's Motu, whether it's Barbie, how do you decide which stories to tell?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Mattel is truly a toy box that has the most amazing intellectual properties, we call it brands, in the world. The ones you know about, obviously, everyone knows Barbie and Masters of the Universe and Hot Wheels, but things you know, but you wouldn't even expect that it's Mattel's, like
Right.
like Magic 8 Ball, Street Sharks, Uno, and more. So when we're looking at it, I mean, there's three things we're looking at most of all, which is heart and world and character.
Okay.
And heart is really you can imagine, like, we've realized that we don't have Mattel doesn't have customers, we have fans. That the brands have fans, and the reason is because the heart is that universal truth that really touches you and makes you feel like, you know, it can relate to everybody of all generations around the world. And world is where we're not just looking for one great story or even one great TV show. The home run for Mattel is to create a universe of story where we can, like, mine different tales for different characters from all the different pockets. I mean, our comps are things like Marvel and Star Wars, or for us, Masters of the Universe or Monster High, or you name it. And then character is the only reason anyone gives a crap about any of the other things I mentioned. If you don't have great characters who are your point of view into that world, it won't matter. So who are those characters? What do they want? What their conflict is? And how can you evolve them to stay relevant but still be true and honor the core of what that character was?
Now, the first pillar that you mentioned, if you will, is heart. So when we talk about heart, it immediately makes me think of Monster High because of the message of inclusivity and everyone is welcome here. And plus, it also has a hugely passionate fan base. I don't know if we have any ghouls out here today, but the Monster High fan base is very, very strong and very present here at Comic-Con, and it's incredible. Is Monster High a good example of the heart you were referring to?
It is, and I brought a slide because I don't go anywhere without a slide.
Very prepared.
Yes, I am prepared. Monster High absolutely has one of the greatest hearts of any of the properties Mattel has, because everybody, either you will feel this way, you have felt this way, you know people who felt this way, everybody feels like they're a monster in high school, right? Everybody feels like when they're changing and they're like, what's happening to me? They're a monster in high school. And then what Monster High tells us, which is so aspirational and true, is that the thing that makes you feel freaky is actually what makes you feel fabulous, right? It's actually your greatest strength, and you should be proud of it, and you should let your freak flag fly, so to speak.
Do it.
And when you have something like that that means so much to everybody, it's really about, like, how do you keep that resonant? And when we were bringing back Monster High in the last couple of years, we wanted to just kind of build on that and speak to kids today who are really, they've kind of learned that lesson and they want to do something with it. They want to actually help change the world. And so for us, it became, what makes you freaky not only makes you fabulous, but makes you fierce. And that speaks to the agency that we all have to actually make the world a better place, especially if you do it with your friends. And then on top of that, I mean, the monster metaphor is such a wonderful thing to speak for today in terms of the inclusivity. I mean, we have Draculaura now to speak to today. She's born a vampire, but she identifies as a witch, which is a no-no in her world. And we got to also speak to what it means to come from different backgrounds of ethnicities with Claudine, who's half human and half wolf. And then we got to explore the nationalities and regions of the world, the real world, where our monsters might come from in ways we never did before. So it's really an exciting time for Monster High.
I just love Monster High's message that, like, your differences are what make you awesome, and let's celebrate that.
It's kind of like our version of the X-Men. Don't quote me on that. I did not say that, but I always see it as, like, I see them as very similar in some ways.
In some ways, I can totally see that. Yeah. All right. Now, the next pillar you had mentioned was world, and you talked about kind of building out the lore and the greater verse around these different properties. Are there any particular Mattel brands or characters that you were most excited to build out the lore for?
Yeah, the biggest challenge recently was, well, of course, that's for sure. But the greatest one, anyone doesn't know, he's wearing a Masters of the Universe T-shirt. But I would speak to Hot Wheels. I don't know if anyone has been watching Hot Wheels Let's Race. It's our new show that's on Netflix for little kids who are thankfully loving it. And Hot Wheels was a challenge because it's never had any version of the show of Hot Wheels as a TV show before. Always felt so like almost like sub-specific to some subline of the brand, and it did never capture the real breadth of what little kids love so much about the larger Hot Wheels experience. So we thought, let's make a TV show and set it in Hot Wheels City, at the center of the Hot Wheels universe. The car lovers' paradise. A city that never breaks. Where they used to say all roads lead to Rome. Well, all Orange Track leads in and out of Hot Wheels City, right? And we could use this hub to be the center of an extended Hot Wheels universe. Like one of those tracks can lead to Monster Truck Island, or if you love the kind of character pop culture cars of Hot Wheels, one of those tracks can lead to essentially Hot Wheels is Hollywood, right? Where you might meet, Street Sharks cars or Skeletor cars or what have you. Yeah. And at the center is Ultimate Garage, that the fun house factory that makes all this possible and holds the real key to the Hot Wheels universe, which are all the cars, right? So every other show before would be so specific to one kind of car, but we said, here's a camp with 6 of the next generation of racers attending a 10-week camp at the Ultimate Garage, and every single time they have to face a challenge, they have to pick the right car for the right challenge, and then they suit up to a tune written by Patrick Stump, who's the lead singer of Fall Out Boy. So that's an example of just kind of creating a larger world around one of our properties.
Well, and hats off to yourself and the entire creative team for, looking at something as iconic as Hot Wheels for its play value and turning it into this wonderful entertainment property. That's so cool.
It's been so much fun.
Mattel's had a history of doing that for so long, so I feel like this is the perfect place to do that. Now, Rob, the third pillar you had mentioned was character.
Oh, yes.
And I know as a fan, you probably have some characters that you were very stoked to build a world around.
Oh, and that would be Masters of the Universe, because I said, I just was playing with all those toys. And anyone who's a Motu fan, and everyone knows what Motu is, so I'm not, anyone who's a Motu fan knows that every single time Motu has come back and told stories, there are always things hinted about the characters. Will Adam's secret ever be revealed? Will we ever find out what's in Castle Grayskull? Will Tila ever reach her destiny as a sorceress? Will Hordak finally invade? And then the show's over, right? And then they're like, "Wah!" And that happened twice. So 5 years ago, I had a breakfast with my friend Ted Biaselli, who's over at Netflix, and we just said, what if we did a show where we just continued the storyline and got to learn those things and finally reveal those things. And I brought in Kevin Smith, who I had loved reading his comics. I think he may have directed a few movies too, but he wrote some comics that I love, where he took the Frank Miller Daredevil stories and he kind of paid them forward in kind of startling ways. And I brought along a picture from my own scrapbook of the very first story session I had with Kevin. That's me, and Kevin's in the middle, and then Melanie Shannon, who works on our team as a creative exec at Mattel Television. And we just, I brought a story there that I'd been working on for Mattel before called The Fall of Eternia, which was that opened where in the future where Adam and He-Man and Skeletor are fighting, and Adam, to save the day, has to break the Sword of Power. So he defeats Skeletor once and for all, but he reverts back to Adam. And then we flash forward a few years where he hasn't been Adam for a while, kind of echoing how we used to play with He-Man, but it's been a while since we did. And then he has to go on this journey through Subternia and whatnot to reforge his power sword. And Kevin loved that idea. But he said, what if we don't just break his sword and lose He-Man? What if Adam dies too? Which I thought was actually totally dramatic, because he was trying to say, why don't we just really bring into focus what He-Man means to this world by just taking him off the board for a second, and have all the characters basically said, oh my God, we have to rise to the occasion or we die. And that's such a dramatic way of bringing about change. And so we broke out the story, took it to Teddy later that week. He loved it, had some killer ideas. We took it from there. And it was all part of this process to evolve all the characters, which started in Revelation, went through Revolution, where He-Man, spoiler, he came back. I know it was a little bit controversial for 5 minutes. But he came back and better than before, and we just got to evolve his character storyline. Like I said, you're always looking for new ways to be fresh and exciting, but stay true. So everyone knows he's He-Man now, but we evolved what that meant in terms of his relationship with his father. His father's still looking for him to resolve the conflict of being He-Man versus Prince Adam. So it's been a lot of fun to do that. And it all worked out. Like I said, he came back, and there he is in all his glory. Animation by Powerhouse Studio was amazing.
That's And I know the new series have such a rabid fan base around it, if you will. Just personal fun fact question for you, Rob. Do you have a favorite Motu figurine from when you were a kid?
Oh, it's so hard. I mean, I love Manny Faces because I mean, how cool is
Okay.
that? But Man at Arms is always my favorite because I just love the fact that he's in this world of magic users,
Yes.
and he has to rely on his wits and his mitts and his cunning to equal them. And so in some ways, and I keep comparing to everything to other people's IP, so don't get me in trouble, Mattel. But I mean, he's kind of
Off the
Motu's
record.
Batman. You know, it's like Batman can go toe to toe with Superman and everyone. That's Man at Arms. I always thought he was so cool.
Man at Arms is very cool. I was a She-Ra girl, so
Yeah,
I
sure.
had my stuff too.
Too many good characters.
Too many good characters.
Just too many. We have to get rid of a few. I mean, too many.
But then bring them back, maybe.
Yeah, then bring them back.
You know.
Yeah.
All right. So when you're thinking about the creative process, and thank you for giving us that detail into, what's going on with Motu right now and kind of how that came to be. But when you're looking at a property, how do you and the team decide how to bring it to life in terms of like in what format?
Well, that's the thing. The first thing you have to do is figure out what format. And on television, we can do animation or we can do live action. And even if it's animation, it's like, do we do it in 2D or 3D?
Right.
And everything has its own plus and minuses. 2D animation is particularly good at doing casts of thousands who may change their clothes every once in a while, because unlike in CG, you have to actually build every model almost like a sculpture. So it's very, very expensive to like do 1,000 changes of costuming. But then again, you can get more detail on those models, unlike on 2D where you have to draw it. And of course, live action is live action, which just feels real. But like when we were doing Revolution, we went for 2D because 2D it felt nostalgic to what people remember from the 80s. But also, as I mentioned, with that character growth in Masters of the Universe, usually when people go on a character right, it comes with a lot of glow ups, which means a lot of costume changes. So it was fun to work it on 2D. And then Hot Wheels, having it be 3D, kids love it. The characters look appealing, but the cars, the detail in the cars, we really wanted to feel like the cars that you play with have scaled up and come to life, and now you're driving it. And with the 3D camera and environment where we can be on the racetracks with them is amazing. And then, of course, Monster High, when you have an opportunity to do Monster High as live action, which we're going to be leaning into even more for Mattel. But that's just amazing because suddenly Claudine and Dracula and Frankenstein, they're real. They are real girls, and they are just like you, and it's such a powerful thing.
It absolutely is. So once you decide kind of what format you want to do it in, walk us through the next steps of the creative process.
Oh, it all starts with story. If the story sucks, I don't care if you're Steven Spielberg, it's not going to save it. It has to be in the story. And the story starts with the first pitch premise, and then you flesh it out into a larger Bible. And then when you're in production, you have the writer's room and you hammer it out. And then when it's finally a final script, you work with the animators. I specialize in animation, but then you do a kickoff, and the directors, that's when it really comes to life. Because as a writer, I hate admitting that a picture speaks 1,000 words. So once the animators get in there, oh my God, does it really come to life? And then the voice actors come in and bring so much personality to it that the animators make sure that they're following the lead they get from the actors. And then when you get to sound, from sound design, look, I see Star Wars right there. What is the sound? What is Star Wars at the sound of a lightsaber? She's going to turn one on, I'm sure, in 2 seconds. But you hear that, and immediately you're transported into that world. And the music, we've been so lucky with Bear McCreary on Masters of the Universe, who's a genius, and Patrick Stump on Hot Wheels Let's Race, who's a genius. But I want to say all of this only works because of passion, super tremendous passion from everyone involved. I never want to work anywhere where people don't have passion. I brought some pictures from the day we were recording Masters of the Universe, and I still tell you, like, Mark Hamill, like, is such an amazing person and had so much. He was too old when the original He-Man came out to be watching it himself. He was also a little busy playing Luke Skywalker for the first time, which I don't find a fun excuse. But his kids loved Masters of the Universe, and he remembers getting them a Castle Grayskull playset for Christmas. And so for him, when he was playing Skeletor, it was like he was channeling the fun, the passion, the memories he had of seeing them open up that gift. And Lena Headey, who you may remember as from Game of Thrones, as Cersei played our Evelyn, she grew up where Evelyn, she said, was her favorite character, which I'm like, that might have something to do with Cersei. She's the nicest person in the world, by the way. And the whole time we were shooting, she was sitting there going, I cannot believe I'm in a booth with Luke Skywalker. Like, she kept geeking out. and they bring that passion. And Kevin, nobody is more passionate than Kevin. Like honestly, people always say, "Oh, he cries." Like it's because he cares, and it's legit. Like,
Yes.
and he brings, like, when in Revolution we had Randor pass away. Spoiler, but it's been out since January, so come on. And Kevin pulled from his own experience with his own father passing, and Adam's eulogy for his father was the eulogy that he had written for his dad. And my father passed away that when we were making the show too, from cancer. So Kevin knew that, and it was like we just kind of bonded about it. When he wrote that, I called him up, and he was legit moved. I mean, the guy really, really cares. So anything you ever hear about Kevin Smith, just know he is legit. He's a legit fan. And it goes from there. I'm going to give a plot out to the passion of Patrick Stump, who does the music for Hot Wheels. That guy also, he only does music. He's a rock star, right? He scores the show from his hotel room when he's about to get on stage. He scores 2 animated series for kids, Spidey and Friends and Hot Wheels Let's Race. And the reason he does is because he loves them both so much. He does not have to do this. He wants to do it. And his earliest memories were helping his grandpa put together cars in the garage, handing his grandfather tools, and then he'd go play with his Hot Wheels. So everybody who works on these shows are just like you, and it's an extension of playing. And that's why I always say, anything that when you were a kid playing with these toys, and if you're still playing with these toys, I don't judge you. I'm right there with you. Like, all the stories you come up with those toys are just as legit as what we're working on. It's done with the same passion.
It's a lot of people say, like, the dream is to get a job working in what you love. And I feel like your career really embodies that, right? Like, you love it so much, you just need to figure out how to monetize this love, and then make it your job.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of know that I would pay them, which is probably a disadvantage when I'm doing renegotiating contracts.
We'll keep that a secret.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
fine. It's fine. Rob, there are certain brands that Mattel has really have legs in terms of the variety of their audience base. Like, when you think of Monster High, when you think of Motu, how do you go about making content that's appropriate for the youngest fans all the way up to your adult fans while still holding true to that brand's DNA?
Well, the thing you have to do is you have to boil everything down to its essence, its core DNA, right? Like, what are the four to five things tops? Because if you go too many, then you're not any more core DNA. What are the 4 or 5 core traits of every character, every brand, every story that must be maintained? If you don't have one of them, it's no longer that thing. And if you honor those four or 5 things, then you can play jazz and just imagine anything and take it in startling new directions, because it's always essentially going to have those elements. So when we were working on the 2 He-Man shows, one was CG for kids, reimagined. The other one was more traditional, but it had those core same elements, and you could then story map between them. We had 2 different versions of Keldor for the longest time, Skeletor, where one was his uncle and one was just a demon from another dimension, but they were both full-on badass Skeletor. But even then, since we were story mapping, we knew that the one from Revelation, we would reveal ultimately that he was also Adam's uncle. So you just need to kind of do a lot of planning. Mattel, we love to present to each other. That's what we are addicted to it. So we do a lot of review, and a lot of thinking goes involved to make sure that we don't screw it up, and we make you happy. So we really appreciate your feedback on that too, because you'll let us know. Because when we're like, you call that a Draculaura? But we really appreciate it, and we hope you appreciate it too.
Well, and that's such a beautiful insight to share in terms of, like, boiling it down to the top few traits and staying true to those, because I think we've probably all seen properties that we love kind of adapted for the screen in a way that we felt like wasn't true to this thing that we're very passionate
100%.
about. We've all seen it, and when you say it so simply, it seems like, oh, yes, well, clearly, but also it's something that I think a lot of people in the creative process might lose sight of.
Well, the temptation is like, I'll show you my version of it. It's like, why? I mean, if you're going to change it, if you're going to absolutely break what was true about it originally, why people liked it originally, why even do it, right? Why are you doing that? Go find something else that's original. But that being said, you also still have to be relevant, and it can't be stuck in amber. Otherwise, it's dead, and things that are live have the capacity to surprise you. So, but that's why you got to lock in on what do you think is core, what's true.
Well, and again, kudos to you and the team for being lifelong fans of a lot of these brands
Totally.
and making sure that that through line is still there. So speaking of being relevant, Rob, is there anything you can kind of tease that's coming up next for Mattel in the content pipeline?
Well, one thing I want to tease specifically, and then I'll go into just broadly speaking.
Okay.
So Let's Race. Very excited. If you have little kids, and even if you're a kid in heart, check the show out. It was the #1 show, not just in the kids space on Netflix, but kids and adults
Awesome.
in over 69 countries for over 4 weeks. So we are super excited about this show. And just to tease you where it's going next for your little kids, we've got a mysterious new racer who's coming in with the Street Shrieker vehicle with all sorts of powers. And she may or may not be connected to one of our characters. And she's there to win. And the stakes have never been higher because we're totally taking a page from Willy Wonka, and they're playing for the keys to the ultimate garage. So the fate of the Hot Wheels universe I just described could be on the line. So that will come out this fall, and we're really, really excited about where the show goes next. And then in general,
Awesome.
I want to let you know that we have got more Masters of the Universe in development as an animation.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I'm not saying anything more than that. Okay, so anyone I know, and I know who you are online, saying so that I am not saying anything, but just so you know that we are not done thinking of ways to have fun with those characters in the world. And not to mention, the biggest cool thing for Mattel Television is we have new leadership, Michelle Mendelovitz, who's really pretty terrific and comes from such a great background in scripted live-action drama. And she's there because we're really kicking it up a gear to lean into the things that we've been doing even more. So we're talking about really premium shows. Let me tell you, one of the reasons I was brought into Mattel, and it's been a joy to see it kind of come to life every cycle, is transforming Mattel into a legit entertainment company along with all of our wonderful toys. And so the Barbie movie, which I don't know if you ever heard of it, was not so bad. I had nothing to do with it, but except for writing and directing it and starring it. But aside from that, nothing to do with it. But it is an amazing thing. And imagine that kind of premium storytelling on the television side with brands that you would be very excited about. And then on the animation side, doing more premium primetime shows. Masters of the Universe Revolution was the first time we ever made a show for an adult audience in our side. That is a testament to the fact that we have, as a company, we know that our brands have stood the test of time. It's a benefit of doing this. And having the heart and the world and those characters means that you guys have been with us on the journey. So why not make more shows specifically, not just for kids, we love kids, but also for all of us too, selfishly. So we're talking about things that you wouldn't. He-Man, Barbie, things like Uno, Magic 8 Ball, Street Sharks, and more. Look for it. Look for it in a huge, tremendous way because it's really an exciting time.
Well, as an adult fan, thank you, because it's funny because my son is 7. And so I look at Hot Wheels Let's Race and I'm like, oh man, he loves like mysterious villains. This is going to be perfect. And then you talk about Motu and what's coming next, and that gets me excited. So thank you for making content.
Thank you.
For all of us out there. It's really incredible. And thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Oh, I love it.
And your insights. You know, it's nice to be able to connect with the folks that watch your content and love your content. So thank you.
We really do it. And I've told this, can I just say one last thing before we get a question? I told you this many times, so if you're a Motu fan, you may have heard me say it. Legit, when I first started Motu, they gave me every Bible on Masters of the Universe. And then I found out about a place called He-Man.org, which, rest in peace, I know that site isn't there anymore. But that introduced me to listening to fans who really know this so well. So we are listening. We care. The insight you guys have is really just like the wind to our sails. So thank you.
It's awesome. And Rob, if you have a few more minutes, I'd love to open it up for Q&A for anyone out here that has questions for Rob.
Thank you. Hi. We saw Turtles of the Grayskull on the figures, and they are awesome. And
Aren't they amazing?
Yeah. I think the Turtles and He-Man was a cartoon to build, to buy, to sell toys. Do you think it's possible this crossover on animation?
Oh, I would love that. I don't have the power to just greenlight that immediately, but if I did, I would have done 10 of those already. But we do have the comic book that we're doing with Dark Horse, written by Tim Seeley and Freddie Williams doing the art. Freddie, I wrote the turtle. Thundercats He-Man crossover with Freddie did the art on that, which was unbelievable. And Tim is like, I have two Tims who are my go-to guys in the comics, Tim Seeley and Tim Sheridan. But they're both super fans, and they've come up with a Turtles of Grayskull storyline for Dark Horse, which is amazing. And of course, we'd love to do anything we could with it in any medium whatsoever.
So a lot of Motu fans are loving the stunt puppet studio stuff. Would there ever be consideration of making that into a TV show?
That stuff is great. That stuff is great. I can't tell you anything, but no. Anyway, I cannot say anything. But of course, who wouldn't want to do things like that?
Great. Well, again, thank you all so much for stopping by the Mattel Creations booth today, hanging out with me and Rob. Rob, thank you so much for hanging out with us again. This was incredible. Folks, here at the Mattel Creations booth, we've got a full lineup of things all throughout the day, so make sure you check back often, and we'll see you soon. Happy Comic-Con.
Thank you, everybody.